Regrettably, sometimes one word, one single word carries massive global weight. Sometimes one word changes the course of history. That one word, regrettably, literally thrust the world into a global war that when the dust settled, trillions of dollars were made and lost. Millions of people were displaced from their homes and hundreds of thousands of people died. That one word, regrettably, redrew the world map. You know that moment when everything changes forever? The one you'll never forget for the rest of your life? I want to take you back to a single moment in time. That kind of life-changing moment for me, it was January. The year was 1991, literally 35 years ago this week, in fact. I was a brand new trader on the crude oil floor in New York. A nobody, a rookie. I was still learning how to survive in a pit where weakness was exposed in seconds and hesitation could cost you big money. That day, oil was trading $23 a barrel. Never forget it. The world was completely on edge. The trading floor, you could hear a pin drop, silence. Why? Iraq had invaded Kuwait. Coalition forces were amassing along the Kuwait border. Everyone knew war was possible, but no one knew if war was inevitable. And on that one day, all eyes were on one single meeting. The U.S. Secretary of State, at the time, James Baker, was sitting across the table from Tariq Aziz, Saddam Hussein's foreign minister. The meeting was supposed to calm things down. The meeting was supposed to lower the temperature, buy some time, create space, and most importantly, the meeting was supposed to avoid escalation, avoid a war in the Middle East that would roil the oil markets and the global economy. That's what diplomacy was supposed to do. On the trading floor, we were watching every headline like hawks, not because we cared about politics, but because we understood something most people don't. Words move markets. Tone matters. Signals matter. And when those signals get misread, consequences compound fast. And then it happened. The Reuters ticker right above the pit monitor started to roll. And at that moment, one single word jumped out. Regrettably. As in, regrettably, no progress was made in Iraq. That was it. One word, and it was all hell breaking loose everywhere. Oil prices exploded up. Traders started screaming. Orders were flying. The pit turned into total chaos. Not because of supply and demand, because the market instantly understood that one single word, regrettably, what it meant. Diplomacy had failed. The off-ramp was gone. Escalation was now the best case, the base case. I didn't have years of experience to fall back on. I didn't have the scars yet. And suddenly, I was thrown directly into a geopolitical tsunami, learning in real time how fragile stability really is and how quickly pressure reveals truth. That day burned something into my memory. I learned that leverage, once it leaves the negotiating table, mutates quickly. It spreads, it morphs, and it gets interpreted by people who aren't even in the room. Markets don't read intent, they read risk. Allies don't hear nuance, they hear threat. Adversaries don't see posture, they see provocation. And once that chain reaction starts, no one controls it anymore. And with that just one word, regrettably, a firestorm was set off, one like I had never seen before. What followed was a combination of panic, fear, greed, exploding like a nuclear bomb on that trading floor that day. Oh, and there were body bags too. Financial bloodbaths. I saw seasoned traders carried out because they had lost everything. They had lost fortunes. Fortunes that were built, by the way, over years and years of trading in those same pits. Those visions are etched into my memory. I was suddenly thankful I wasn't them, but also I was somehow I felt a strong sense of, holy shit, this is where I have to be. I don't know why. That lesson stuck with me. But not just as a trader, but as a man, because life works much the same way. Pressure doesn't announce itself politely. It doesn't wait for you to be ready. It shows up, often suddenly, often unfairly, and demands a response. That was my first real fire. But it certainly would not be the last, because the first time I felt what it meant to be inside something bigger than me, where decisions made far above my head reshaped my reality in seconds. And one word changed all of that. That's when I learned something else. You don't rise to the occasion. You fall to your level of preparation. And if you haven't forged yourself before the pressure hits, before the word regrettably hits, the pressure will break you. That moment on the oil floor wasn't about oil, wasn't about politics. It was about consequence. It was about how quickly comfort disappears. It was about how thin the margin really is between success and failure, and how quickly life separates spectators from participants, aspirants from body bags. That's what this show is all about. Not motivation, not slogans, not easy answers. This show is about the moments that force you to find your own edge or expose where one doesn't exist yet. Every man who's been on this show has faced the version of that moment, that trading pit moment, that regrettably moment, a line he could step back from, a fire he had to walk through. Some survived it, some were remade by it. I've lived through 3 arenas where pressure doesn't care about your excuses: professional sports, financial markets, national television. Each one burned something away, and each one forged something harder in its place. And that's why the show exists, because sooner or later, your proverbial ticker runs across your life with that one word. A word could change everything, and you find out who you really are. Let me tell you where this really started. Not the show, not YouTube, not the guests. This started with pressure. I grew up very, very poor in Chicago. And if you didn't live it, you don't really understand what that is to a kid and what it feels like. Not just the lack of money, but the constant awareness that you're different. You wear different clothes. You eat different lunches. You have a different posture. And you feel all of that the moment you walk into a room or a sports field or a playground or a classroom. That sets the tone for the rest of your life. That stays with you forever. Kids treated me badly. I didn't fit in anywhere. I was a minority inside my own race because of our low socioeconomic status. You can't really explain that concept or that feeling to people who've never experienced it, but it's real and it stays with you forever. Early on, I learned something that would probably follow me for the rest of my life, and has. No one is coming to save you, ever. There's no system, no authority, no shortcut. If I was getting out, it was going to be on me. Sports became my ticket out of hell. Not because it was fun, not because it was glamorous, but because it was survival. Sports gave me structure when everything else felt chaotic. It gave me rules. It gave me discipline. It gave me a place where effort mattered. Not how much money you had, or what kind of job your dad had, or what kind of house you lived in. That was the first arena. Baseball gave me hope and belief, gave me an identity. And then it also took everything away. I was drafted out of college and signed with the Pittsburgh Pirates. My dreams were coming true. One long day after a morning of practice, we hosted the Dodgers at our home stadium in Bradenton, Florida. I was playing third base when it happened. Ground ball behind the bag. I turned to make the throw, a throw I'd made 1,000,000 times before, and my arm blew. Blown rotator cuff, just like that. If you've never had your identity ripped away from you overnight, let me tell you, plain and simple, you wake up and the future you were certain about, gone. Stolen right from under you. No applause, no backup plan, no roadmap, silence. And silence is deadly at that point. That was the toughest moment of my baseball life. The first real fire. That's where I learned something most people will never fully accept or understand. Talent doesn't protect you. It helps you, but it doesn't protect you. After baseball, there was a void. No job, no direction, plenty of discouragement. This is where most people quit. Not loudly, but quietly. You lower your expectations, your standards. You tell yourselves a different story. You settle. You take that job, not because you want that job, because the one you really wanted, baseball career, is gone. So what do? You take the clerk job. You settle. Well, I didn't. So I walked into the second arena. I put myself right on a trading floor in New York. The oil pits, Kuwait, James Baker, high stakes, real money, real consequences. This wasn't theory or simulation. This was survival with an exclamation point. Every decision counted, every mistake, immediate. I want to tell you a little bit of another story from those days in the trading pit. Years after the Iraq War story. This time I had a few years under my belt, and I had amassed a good amount of money in my trading account. I wasn't rich by trader standards, certainly not New York trader standards, but I had built a good trading stake. And then it happened. One day I woke up. I actually went to my son's kindergarten class to read a book, The Spider and the Fly. Remember the book? But a cold front had moved in overnight that no one expected. Canadian air mass moved through the U.S. unexpectedly. It even shocked the well-paid weather service providers that we paid. No one saw this Canadian air mass coming down. I had the wrong positions on. I was in natural gas. I had natural gas to go down. This spiked natural gas because no one saw this cold front coming. After the dust settled, one day, I lost $3 million. One damn day. I wasn't rich, so I was rocked. It cleared out my trading account. Nothing left to trade with and nothing left to live on. Everything gone in an instant. $3 million just doesn't hurt your account. It disrupts your soul. Who are you when you're wrong? Who are you when there's nowhere to hide? Who are you when the screen doesn't care how hard you've worked for the money it just took away? And that day taught me something permanent. Pressure doesn't build character. It reveals whether you have it or not. That was a second fire. It burned me, but it didn't beat me. And later, I went on to become Trader of the Year, by the way, in 2006 by Trader Monthly magazine. And then a few years later came television. I was chosen from the trading floor. Cable news giant CNBC grabbed me one day after oil had hit $50 a barrel. First time ever it had touched $50 a barrel. They had their cameras rolling on the floor. They tapped me. Turns out the people who make decisions at CNBC loved me on camera, my on-camera take on what happened, and offered me a TV job about a week later. However, there were no guarantees. There was no safety net. But this time something was different. This time I understood pressure. I understood preparation, and I understood performance under pressure. I was asked to launch a new financial show called Fast Money for CNBC, which I did. Suddenly, I found another fire to tame, television. A few years later, I moved to Fox News. I found a successful career hosting cable news shows. 2 New York Times bestsellers later, I was on the top of the TV news totem pole. And yes, maybe we'll talk about that crash too another day. But what matters here is this: 3 arenas, 3 fires, 3 times I was stripped down to what actually works. The bullshit burns off early, and you're left with talent and preparation. That's all. That's not a resume. That's a qualification for life. That's why I knew I had to develop this platform and present The Edge. Not because I succeeded, because I failed. I failed very publicly each time, financially, physically, yet I kept going. And I started noticing the same pattern in every serious man I respect. Listen to the people who come on this show, not just their success stories. Fine, listen carefully for the moment they found their edge. How did they develop their edge? What did they forge in the fires that they were experiencing to make an edge? Brett Favre knew that if he didn't get off painkillers, told us right here, he was going to lose everything, his NFL career, likely his family. That wasn't fame, that was a fork in the road for him. Patrick Bet-David didn't find his edge in success. He found it after years of grinding and discipline in Los Angeles, learning the hard way that freedom comes from structure. Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street, wrote the screenplay for that movie, The Wolf of Wall Street, from a jail cell. That's not redemption, that's clarity under confinement. Bo Dietl went from the NYPD detective to Hollywood. Pressure didn't end his story, it redirected it. Those are just some of the names everyone knows. Some of the people that come on the show and talk about what it took to find their edge. But sometimes the most inspiring stories come from men who persevere in the shadows. Tristan Ham took an internet outdoors brand and turned it into real life success. He chose to fight, bare knuckle, boxing, whatever it took, not for clout, but for purpose. Manning Sumner literally broke his back playing football, fractured vertebrae, no money, drove a half-broken car across the country to Miami and started training people. He was obsessed with improvement. Now he runs 8 of his own high-profile gyms. Bottom line, folks, find your arena, harness the fire, forge your future. Now that is The Edge.